you playing?
Hello, and welcome to What the Bleep Are You Playing? A podcast where we play a game, many times bad, and tell you why the bleep we played it. I'm You Shall Not Sean! This is Fly You, Thomas! And one does not simply walk into Mason. And a special guest is never late, nor is she early. Jazz arrives precisely when she means to. And we played... Lord of the Rings, Conquest.
Get it, Lord of the Rings.
Get it?
I don't.
We did mostly Gandalf quotes and then one Sean Bean quote.
I was gonna say if you ever need to know who's the best Lord of the Rings character, 3 out of 4 of those fucking quotes are Gandalf.
3 out of the 4 were Gandalf.
Am I right in saying that that is the longest sentences we've had for the intros?
Yeah. I mean, I did a little bit extra for the WWE All Stars when we had Chris.
That's right.
Debut, and then the VeggieTales one is a little bit longer.
I had a pretty long one when we did Gundam too.
That is right.
Yeah,
I remember that.
But we jumped into back to the PlayStation 3. It's been a little bit since we played a PS3 game, I feel.
Don't worry, I make up for it.
Yeah. Well, Thomas is the one who owns the PS3, so Thomas is like, "Hey, I got this game for this system I own. Let's play it."
For however much longer this lasts.
You want to play some games?
And we decided to jump into Lord of the Rings for the first time.
Woo. Yeah.
And of course, that means we had to bring the best fantasy person we knew.
Yes, I am a fantasy person. I am not real.
Exactly.
He's probably seen these movies more than all of us.
I don't know if I'd say that. I actually have seen these movies a criminally small amount of time.
Really? I think I remember you saying that you haven't finished the third one yet, have you?
I have.
Oh,
yeah.
You have.
Well, how many times have you seen them?
Probably about 3 each.
See,
Okay.
I've seen.
I've got one. So
Fellowship I've probably seen about 35 times.
Yeah.
I've seen one movie half.
But have you seen the Rankin and Bass Hobbit?
The greatest film.
The greatest film in the history of films.
I haven't. I've seen...
It's literally the greatest adventure.
That,
it's what lies ahead.
Right there in the
today
name.
and tomorrow are yet to be said.
Are you guys quoting the songs?
yes,
Yes,
they're
we
quoting
are.
the songs.
Anyway, if
God.
you're
lucky we didn't sing it.
if you're still listening to this podcast, and I don't blame you for being like,
Actually, if you stopped listening, it's transphobia. So.
that's true.
There you go.
But we're here
We're holding it against you.
to talk about Lord of the Wings. Lord of the Wings. I'm gonna get some buffalo wings.
Yeah. Gandalf walks in. You shall not pass me without those buffalo wings.
No, because he has to speak it like he's at a Buffalo Wild Wings. You shall not pass until you give me those extra spicy boneless wings, Frodo.
Why did he become Southern?
Because he's at a Buffalo Wild Wings.
Why did he become Foghorn Leghorn?
Oh, goodness gracious. We played Lord of the Rings Conquest, and it is, the best way to describe it is the studio that made it, Pandemic Studios, also made the original Battlefront games, Star Wars Battlefront games. And it is, if you took the Battlefront games and put Lord of the Rings in it and ratcheted up the goofy in this level,
That's honestly...
up a few more notches.
What I was going to say is, have you ever played Battlefront? Yeah. You've pretty much played this game.
It's Battlefront, but instead of guns, because, God forbid, Aragorn just pulls out a fucking Glock. It's Battlefront, but instead of guns, you just are hacking and slashing.
Mm-hmm. And you have your mages, you have archers, you have Ents, which are the vehicles, and I am best at Ents. But also, because came out after Battlefront 2, which debuted the heroes and villains in that one, they do that as well. That, you know, you're playing the grunts, and then, you know, you do enough stuff, you get to be Elrond.
Grenade!
Or the cheapest character in the history of games, Frodo.
His hitbox is so small. It's genuinely unfair.
Yeah, that's another thing about this game, is it's like, take the Battlefront, put it in Lord of the Rings, and then just gut out the balance. Just rip it out.
Battlefront 2 is not the most balanced game.
Going back to Battlefront 2 wasn't really balanced.
Battlefront 1 was really balanced and had a pretty good online community back in the day, especially on the Xbox, because PlayStation 2 online was not great.
It was online.
You were in fact connected to the internet. I don't know if you were connected to friends or anything, but you were connected to the internet on it. But it did have that's probably the most balanced of their PlayStation 2 games like these. Maybe one of the Mercenaries game was a little more balanced, I think. That does follow a little. It's a very similar type of game play, but this game, there's a reason they shut down the online stuff a year later. And it's not just because the studio was about to be dissolved. It's because this game is
the good guys win, the bad guys lose.
And sometimes the AI does not care which side you're on, and it's not going to do a damn thing.
Sometimes the AI just dies. Like, it'll just stand there. Like, are you alive?
Specifically, it takes a second for you to spawn in the game. And there was a few times at the start of a game we'd be spectating an AI. Say, we're in the mines of Moria. Arrows are whizzing by. You can hear the roar of a Balrog in the background. You're staring at this Gondorian soldier. He's got his bow pulled back, and why did he just walk off the edge? Did they not install safety railings? He's gone. That's a bottomless pit. He ain't coming back.
Oh, they did install safety railings. He just leaned on them. They're not up to code.
Or, you know, there would be, maybe someone would be a hero like Gandalf who has exceptional healing power and would not use it. Or the amount of times that's like, we need to do teamwork to take down this big monster. What do you mean all of you are charging at his front? That is his exact strong point.
He has a grab attack. Avoid his hands. What? You mean throw myself into his hands?
And legitimately...
Hey, boss, he's got a sword the size of a fucking skyscraper. What's a skyscraper? I don't know, but I'm going to attack it.
And that is the big reason this game was not particularly well reviewed.
No, it wasn't.
It was a lot of 5s, a lot of 4s. It was unbalanced, bad AI, glitchy in parts, and this might be one of the most fun that we've had as a group just playing a video game. Because look, this game is filled to the brim with flaws.
It's ridiculous.
And 14 years later, that's what makes it charming.
Yeah.
Is that someone was like, you know what, that Lord of the Rings stuff, we're going to kind of the later games, things like Shadow of Mordor and things like that like really leaned into the fan fiction Lord of the Rings games. They're like, what if we start doing that? But what if we make the gameplay absolutely crazy? And we're going to say there are classes. And yeah, they do have some difference. But in the end, you're just mostly still doing the same thing with every character. Unless you're a scout. Then you're playing Assassin's Creed is what you're doing.
You're playing Assassin's Creed where Ezio can go invisible, stab a dude in the throat, turn around, and whip a black powder bomb into their face.
So I almost wonder... what was the next game that this developer made after this?
They did not have much because they were going to be dissolved not too long ago because EA bought them and was like, yeah, we don't want you anymore.
Okay, but the next one
bad.
Or the previous one?
After this, if I can get rid of stuff, they made one more game, The Saboteur, also released in 2009.
Okay, what was before this?
Mercenaries 2.
Mercenaries 2. Because I was almost thinking like it could have been possible that like they were developing one of the other Battlefront games at the same time and had to split the team.
Battlefront 2 came out 4 years before this.
So I guess not. Never mind.
So
don't give them.
I was trying to give Conquest the benefit of the doubt.
I can give you the answer for this. EA was working on potentially dissolving them.
I mean, there was also the fact that the Saboteur was the bigger project.
Yeah, that was that. This was their license, easy money. And they were working on Saboteur. But also EA was behind the scenes being like, we've acquired you and...
we don't know if we want you.
We think you guys should all leave and join 343 Studios and go make some Halo games.
Some of the worst Halo games.
Halo 4 and the anniversary. It's
MCC was bad at launch. I know that we live in a day and age where MCC is like the only way to play Halo anymore, and it's good. It was not good when it came out.
That's a problem with video games nowadays.
It's not even nowadays.
It's just yeah.
But
anyways,
before we
I
played
know
this,
that.
Thomas mentioned, was talking about and said, like, you know, it feels like Pandemic Studios kind of was gone before they really got going.
Yeah, because when you look at their history, it's not like the greatest lineup ever, but you know, they've got the Mercenaries games, they've got the Battlefront games.
Destroy All Humans?
Destroy All Humans.
Whoa.
I think the Saboteur, personally, I think the Saboteur is a really underrated PS3 era sandbox. So, honestly, looking at their lineup, I'm like, there's not a really terrible game.
And we're going to
There's some
actually
that are
revisit this
weaker.
studio a little later in the season, because we have a game that they made later in the season. So,
really?
yeah.
Which one?
Wow.
Do we want to say it?
Just the fact that Mason does not read our group chat or does not remember a single thing from the group chat.
Listen,
It is hilarious.
I literally sent it to the fucking group chat.
So
They-
listen,
Do you have selective seeing?
I'm not in the group chat. Can I know?
Army Men RTS.
Army Men RTS.
Fun.
Oh, that's right.
They had
Sorry, I glanced at
they
that.
made 3 Star Wars games. They made Battlezone 2. They made a lot. Like, this studio was doing a lot of interesting things, and they were starting to move more into sandbox type of things, Saboteur, and they were actually the team behind the canceled Dark Knight tie-in
right, you
game,
mentioned that.
which
That's
you know
right.
was kind of sad. I remember even when that movie came out, and I was like, oh, the Batman Begins game came out. When's the Dark Knight game going to come out? And I know it was behind the scenes. There was a lot that they were taking time because Nolan and WB kept a lot secret, so they didn't know a lot of the story stuff. So it was always going to be later after the movie. But it was like, you know, we'd sit there and like it's still in development. It's still in works. 2009. It's not really in development anymore. It's not really in the works.
It's coming.
Oh.
It's coming. Well,
That's sad.
Yeah, the Dark Knight game comes out, and it's like, is Joker the villain? Oh, was that who's the villain in the movie? Yeah, we got Killer Croc.
I was going to say Clayface.
oof.
Okay, look, that actually goes.
A sandbox game where Clayface is chasing you? Yeah, I'm down with that. Anyway,
Okay, so
I
it's
know superheroes.
Batman Web of Shadows.
yes.
I'd play it.
But I think this is kind of feels like a studio on its last legs, even though, as aforementioned, the Saboteur is a really good game that came out the same year and they did good things. This just kind of feels like, oh yeah, we know we're done. Let's get a game out and make some money.
It's also interesting because like I didn't think this was a PS3 game. I thought this was PS2.
Yeah, I said kind of the same thing. I was like, I can see some of the graphic things. They're like, which system was this developed for?
Yeah, it looks it's a little rough around the edges.
It's fine,
Personally,
like, but
graphics to me aren't the be all and end all of games. It is a noticeable thing.
I love the way this game looks.
Oh, that's the thing, is it's bad graphics, but it is in like a fun way.
Yeah.
Like in a, I want to bash my action figures together in weird combat sort of way that is okay if the graphics are bad, not great.
I think even a lot of the bad things this game does, it does them in a way that makes them enjoyable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this is the most fun kind of bad game I've ever played.
We've played a lot of games like that.
Yeah, it's
I haven't.
almost like that's our fucking brand.
Yeah. Right on brand.
Right on brand.
But a little from the behind the scenes now. Let's move over a little bit to kind of the gameplay of this fun, weird game. Thomas played the one player. We didn't really play a whole lot of the one player here when we
I
sat
have
down.
a ton of
Jazz
experience.
has a ton of experience playing the one player. Is it as bonkers as the blurbs make it out to be?
I think
Story-wise, at
it
least?
is. Story-wise, the game follows the plot of the movies for the first half, the light side. I can't remember what the actual campaign's called. It's like the War of the Ring or something.
Yeah, it's War of the Ring, and then the dark side is like the Reign of Sauron or something.
Yes. And the Reign of Sauron is where things really go off the rails. The first mission of the evil campaign starts with Sauron has been destroyed, and there's this little fucking dude running around, and he's the one who did it. Kill him. And it just goes from there. You sack Rivendell. The very last mission, If I remember correctly, this might be wrong. The very last mission is sort of the Ewok hunt that Battlefront had, except you're in the Shire, killing hobbits.
Jeez. Good lord, that's dark.
It's dark, it's so goofy, and it's funny as hell.
Yeah, I did not get a chance to play the dark campaign. I played the light campaign because it was like 2 hours. It was not much
They are
to
very
do.
short.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to be honest here. This game excels at multiplayer because the single-player campaign pissed me the fuck off.
It's because you weren't playing as a scout. Playing as a scout shatters this game at every available pathway.
I'm sure it does, but also I found... it does shatter the game, but once I was playing as a scout, I'm backstabbing everyone. I'm like, I'm fucking bored.
That's the problem, is that you can kind of slog and struggle your way through it as like a warrior or a mage. If you're me when I was 12, you can play as the archer and destroy everything. God, I miss when I could aim with a controller. Or you play as a scout, and you go invisible, you backstab, you run away. You go invisible, you backstab, you run away. Go invisible, backstab, throw a grenade, run away. It's
Hold on, I don't know if I'm getting on track with this. I'm gonna need you to repeat that one more time.
okay. Go invisible,
Yeah,
backstab,
yeah,
throw a grenade,
yeah,
backstab,
yeah,
go invisible,
yeah.
run away.
Okay, got it. I feel like you lost your own train of thought there midway through. I can see in your
It's the
face
brain rot
when
of a
your brain
scout.
broke.
See, this is how...
Eventually, you inhale enough black powder that you just kind of lose
See,
it.
this is how I know we're on different mindsets, because I exclusively basically played as the mage and the warrior. But
I-
also, it's on my fucking driver's license. It's Thomas Basic Bitch.
As I did in OG Battlefront, the first Battlefront game, is I would find the maps with the best ships, and and in this game, the best ships are the Ints. So let me become an Int, and then just walk and smack things.
Ents, ogres, wargs, ballistas.
Which that is
say,
really
what
cool
was
way
the-
to make the vehicles from Battlefront into this world where there aren't vehicles.
Just make them mounts.
Which one of those is the elephants?
Oh,
None of them.
Oliphants.
Oliphants, that's
Those
right.
are... Oh, I swear they're playable. The game we played on Pelennor Fields, they weren't. I have so many distinct memories of getting in an Oliphant, because there's not a lot of room on that battlefield.
There's
you
not.
you move forward and you press square
swing,
sometimes,
you
and your
swing
head's...
a lot.
the Oliphants are there for the players Legolas to do a fun, quick time event and absolutely destroy.
There
Yeah.
is, speaking of the size of it, when we played Mines of Moria, where if you're on the dark side, you can become the Balrog, and he is too big to traverse a lot of the map. I got stuck a lot of times. I'm like, pillar, turn, pillar. All right, and if I just turn the side and we pivot, okay, and pivot, okay, pivot, up, and up, okay.
Just imagining the Balrog trying to fucking shimmy through the pillars. Think skinny, think skinny, think skinny.
Light as a feather.
It changes the scene in the movie of like they're running away and he's just like, I'm coming. No, just wait there. I know. I'm gonna get wait there to the bridge. I'm
In the
coming.
movies, he could walk through pillars
was gonna
because
say, he
he's a
just-
giant flaming
gonna
demon,
say, he just
and
broke
they
him
just
down.
kind of get out of the way. The pillars in this game are like, hey, dude, do you have a warrant?
Yeah,
Turn around.
All right, imagine this, right? You're in that map. There's nowhere to move. You have the Balrog and Smog. It's just there's no room to move anywhere.
Which
Smog
again,
wouldn't fit in there.
these are game-breaking things that are absolutely hilarious and make the charming thing of it. Mason and Jazz were playing the hero mode, which is where all the heroes that you unlock are all just playable from the
chaotic.
beginning. And it literally, it's chaotic, and you're like, oh, I can see why this game was poorly reviewed. But it's also hilarious to watch because it's absolute chaos thrown into especially in a small map. They played on the Shire. And it's just all these heroes running around. You got 3 Gandalfs running around, fighting, a couple of Saruman who they look the exact same and teammates. And it's
I felt bad when I was playing that match because I kept getting backstabbed by Jazz that I had to resort to screen cheating, and I hate doing that. It makes me feel horrible.
It's part of the thing. It's a split screen game. Everybody does it.
yeah.
Everybody does it. Nobody wants to admit it. I was the first.
See, any game where you can play as Gandalf and just fucking Palpatine, Graymer Wormtongue with your fucking lightning.
That greasy fuck.
It's immediately like an 11 out of 10 game.
We played on the PS3. On the 360, could you play more than... Or I guess the PS3 had as well. Could you? Is it just 2 players, or could you play up to more control if you had more controllers?
I'm assuming probably 4.
I think you could get up to 4.
Which,
I was
again...
gonna say, which version did we play?
We played, like as
way
kids,
yeah.
Xbox 360. I didn't have a PC
Okay.
as a
Because
kid.
I feel like I may be remembering this wrong, but I feel like I distinctly remember playing with you, me, and your sister
Yes.
all at the same time.
So,
So I think,
because the Battlefront games, one of the fun things, especially on the Xbox back, because the PlayStation 2 was 2 controllers, so, you did just the 2 screens, but on the Xbox, you had 4 players you could play on Battlefront 1 and 2, and
What a weird thing to lock behind one console.
Well, it's not locked behind one console, it's just that the PS2 only
has 2 controllers.
Oh.
So the PS2 is always, that was a decision PlayStation until they went wireless with the 3. When you started to have multiple controller things like that, Whereas Xbox Xbox and GameCube had 4 controller ports.
That's right.
Which are following along the same way as like the 64 had 4 controller ports.
You could probably I don't know, buy a multi-tap or something.
Mm-hmm. There were ways to, but a lot of the games didn't allow multiple play up without it, and it was just something they didn't always include because of the versions. But that was just an interesting thing. I was like, well, I wonder how many you could play. We didn't really test it. We didn't have enough controllers, but we did mostly 2 one-on-one matches with the teams things. Control-wise, it controls so similarly to Battlefront. It's hilarious. It is literally, they're like, what if we did the Battlefront controls, but a little bit more of like hack and slashy?
Yeah.
I think my biggest problem was because knowing these controls off the back of my hand as a 12-year-old means that I had this vaguest sense of I know what some of these buttons do, and then the second I got into a game, I was like, yeah, what's the shoot button?
And then your brain goes smooth and you forget everything.
How do I jump?
Yeah.
Oh fuck! How do you move?
What's the X button do?
What's the
There. And in the end, a lot of times, you'll get it, depending on what class, you'll do a lot of other things. But in the end, if you're just a warrior, you're just using your power, your hack and slash moves. You don't worry as much about your specials. There are a few things like your spinny swords, your fire stuff. Yeah, so it's just while there is a lot more differentiation, in the end, you're going quickly. You're not always trying to do your big attacks. You're trying to do things that are quick.
The only class it really matters with is archers, because your variety of arrows are your entire arsenal.
Yes.
And the mage, whose button prompts are even different compared to everything else, because there's... That class is way more complicated than anything else in the game.
Yeah, the mage has a lot more...
The mage has
Mage is so
a
different.
bubble, a heal, their base lightning spell, which is the only chargeable attack in the game.
It's they've got a fireball.
They have the fireball, which for different races that you play as does different things, and they have.
They have the fuck off, you shall not pass.
An AoE burst attack.
Which definitely feels like if a lot more of the classes were balanced for combat, that there would be a lot more to choosing your class. But because there's not a whole lot of balance, and while mages absolutely have their use in a lot of times, they also fall fairly fast when you get to their shields.
Are way better in single player, because a lot of the time you can be like, okay, this mission requires me to move across the map, and I have a ton of archers, because AI would follow you a lot in the campaign, and so you could use that little bubble that the mage puts up to cover the giant escort of archers you have while they fire and everything around you. There was a lot more point in a lot of the mage's skills in the single player than there was in the multiplayer.
More teamwork stuff that would really work if the online mode was anything.
I never even got to play the online mode as a kid. I really, really wish I had gotten the chance, though. It sounds just like
I think that maybe is something. I mean, almost tipping my hand to the second question a little bit here. That's something that that I feel like with the dawn of a lot of the arena shooters nowadays, that something like this maybe could come back a bit. But utilizing some different things. But I really think...
We're going to make you dream later.
I really think that, control-wise, it's fine, but I'm not like super in love with the controls. Like they weren't. There was nothing bad about them, but there was nothing that I was like, oh my gosh, this is like great controls.
They're functional.
Yeah, they work, and they work better than just that. They work just fine, but like there's nothing else, like nothing about it that was like, oh my gosh, these controls are amazing type of thing. Like I would want to use these a lot of different things. But I think some of that might be down to how they ended up with the way the game clashes together with the classes fighting.
Classes.
Yeah, words.
It was an interesting thing going back to playing this game, like comparing it to like when we played it for the first time and we were like 10, 11, 12 and didn't have the faintest idea what a good video game was. But it was still a lot of fun compared to like playing it now as a jaded 20-year-old and having at least a little bit of a semblance of what a good video game is, being like, well, I'm still having fun.
No, you don't.
But it's not. It's
You don't have a semblance. You like Go Vacation.
Okay.
I was 22 when this game came out.
I have a
throwback,
huge,
baby.
I have a huge taste in like what's a good
I
game.
was older than Mason is now when this game came out.
Did you play this game when it came out?
I didn't. This is
That's
the first
what I fucking.
I was gonna say.
I've currently just got the Ben Affleck hello darling. It's going towards me right now.
I can see him staring off into space.
What is life?
I may be a small child, but I'm a small child who played games.
I honestly thought you were about to say, I may be a small child, but I've got a big brain.
I don't. That's the problem.
I've got the power of anime and God on my side.
I do have that.
Anyways.
Well, part of that.
Anyways, you were saying earlier about you do have a semblance.
Yeah, like I have a semblance of what a good. I have a vague idea of what I think a good game should be, and I still think that okay, here's my hot take. I think even if this game came out now, I think it would get panned. If this game that we just played came out today, but it's one of those games that I'd find on the Steam library, and I'd be like, oh, this looks goofy as shit. I'll pay $20 for it, and then I would have 300 hours in it.
Yeah,
Right.
It is. And part of it is it came out in the late 2000s, right? But 2009, there we're fading more and more away from everyone sitting on the couch and playing all night long, games, and you're having all those sort of things. That was starting. That games were not being developed for that, and this feels like a game that, like, if it had come out on like the Nintendo 64 around GoldenEye time, we're talking about an instant classic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the truth we're talking.
Remakes of this
Yeah,
game.
that's what we are literally talking about. A game that in that era would be an instant classic. But kind of the era it came out and how it is a step down and a bit from Battlefront's gameplay, and especially Battlefront's online gameplay. I think that is what hurts it a little bit from
to that 100v100 PC exclusive game mode in Battlefield 2.
Whoa.
Because remember, keep in mind, this, I believe, was the exact same year Modern Warfare 2 came out.
Oh my God, was it?
Online, I believe so. I could.
It's
be
around
wrong,
then. Modern Warfare was right around then, yeah.
But yeah, and online multiplayer went from big to fucking ginormous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
And so, like, we're just talking about a game that I think is a little late to the party of when it needed to be. But also if we're talking about a studio that wasn't about to be dissolved, or that was only working on one game and this was their A game for the year, maybe we're talking about one that has a lot more attention to some of the details put in, specifically in the AI.
I will say this though, late to the party. Glad you made it though.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Absolutely.
I think,
100%.
I think this is really one of those better late than never games.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine how my life would have changed if I had not played this.
Especially considering, think of the type of the Lord of the Rings game that we'd gotten. We'd gotten the movie tie-in games, which are really fun, but they're more of action RPGs. You had a lot of RTSs on the computer. My goodness, Lord of the Rings RTSs were everywhere on the computer.
I've never played a Lord of the Rings RTS.
I had actually had a friend in high school who was a top 10 ranked in the whatever the Lord of the Rings RTS. I can't remember the name of it.
Like Adventure or something.
Yeah, something like that.
I've seen like the.
He would go up to like the board during study hall, and he would literally draw out diagrams of his exact plans of how he could win a match against
he was a Star Trek
against another another ranked person
game.
in like he's like, this is what it'll be set up, and this is another ranked player. This is what he will do, and I will win this match in 10 minutes.
I bet he was really cool.
I mean,
genuinely,
yeah.
that sounds like a really cool person to know.
Yeah.
I'm jealous of people who can play RTSs. I'm too
yeah,
stupid for that.
same. I love RTSs and I'm always bad at them. That's why Army Men 2 is my favorite RTS. Because I could play it.
Oh man, I had something I wanted to say and now I can't remember what it was.
Remember the point and click Lord of the Rings game for the Super Nintendo?
Oh, yeah.
I did not.
Yes, there was a kind of tangent. It's always funny to me whenever I see Lord of the Rings stuff before Peter Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yes, obviously Lord of the Rings existed long before Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
But every time I see it, because I was born in 97, so when I first heard of Lord of the Rings, it was through the Peter Jackson movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so
might as well be saying that it's like Spider-Man existed before Sam Raimi.
And so
It's the second Sam Raimi joke made tonight.
And every time I see older stuff, I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Somebody went back in time.
Why does that guy not look like Viggo Mortensen?
you know, you make a joke, but that's exactly it. Like the fucking Rankin Bass Return of the King, Aragorn, and then it's like, why does he look like Samson from a Bible special?
Well, especially in Return of the King, why are all the characters ugly? Why is that movie...
That style is not ugly, how dare you.
It's not that the style's ugly. I love the animation, I love the art style, but the characters they're like, how can we make the ugliest humans known to man?
And it cracks me up because they're like Gollum, you know, he's this wretched little creature. Always...
The Rankin and Bass concept of Gollum scares the shit out of me
Yeah.
today. He looks way too much like a fish.
I was gonna say, he looks like a fucking frog.
Yeah, he's way more amphibian than even Andy
Serkis.
Yeah.
Even
Really
Andy
bad with
Serkis
actor
is-
names.
When his this is a great tangent there in the Rankin and Bass when he's like paddling his little boat in the first movie, like that, you legitimately, like the way they did the eyes and the color, he's like Kermit the Frog's psycho cousin. And it's awesome.
It's like
Basically.
The voice for Rankin and Bass's Gollum is actually terrifying. Andy Serkis did a great job. I think that the Rankin and Bass version of Gollum is so much more impactful. Even in The Hobbit, where it's like you don't ever find out that he's a really fucked up hobbit. You look at that and you go, that is not right.
that ain't
Like,
right.
what is that?
What are you?
Anyway, our fun tangent into the Rankin and Bass because
God, I love those movies.
Don't worry. We'll be coming back to those.
eventually, absolutely. I think. Does anybody have any like last little things before we get into questions on the game? Anything you wanted to bring up about it?
I do, but I'm going to save that for the question.
Fair enough.
I think I had wanted to say this when we were talking about pandemic, and like because it is obviously it's a tragedy when we see like game companies get shut down, they get bought out, and they get.
It's a tragedy when EA, yes,
Especially
when EA,
when
But-
it's just gone too soon.
I think we can be thankful that pandemic didn't get the Rare treatment, where they get bought out, and then Microsoft says, "Oh, you're our bitch now. You're gonna make nothing but shit."
When you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Yeah.
yeah, and that is actually an interesting thing
What do you
because
want to make, Sea of Thieves or Sea of Thieves?
Every time I see a games company get dissolved, I'm like, at least they're not.
in this
At least they're not
era
rare.
where the big companies are buying out and trying to get the exclusives for it instead of being like, we're gonna sign a contract and you're gonna be for like 5-6 years.
Podcast, the Activision merger is awful and evil and bad.
Yeah. And there's always the thing. I've never had a problem with exclusivity to systems. I've never had a problem with the studio doing that, but I don't like necessarily the idea of Sony or Microsoft, Nintendo hasn't yet, or Nintendo or anyone buying the smaller studios
Yes!
and making those make it exclusive.
Pay them to make exclusive games. Don't buy them.
Yeah.
Because it creates a monopoly, and it's bad. It's
Yes.
really, really bad for the industry.
Yes.
Anyway, if you wanted to hear, if you kept through this podcast and all the goofiness, here's the serious point where we get to like, hey.
I understand that Activision being bought by Microsoft is good for the people who like COD because it's on Game Pass now. it is so bad for the rest of the industry.
Yeah, it really is. Instead of just trying to make a good contract of exclusivity, because then you have control over it. You are making control over it, and it's a slope that, you know, we talk about the slippery slope, but it's a dangerous thing to be like, eventually it's just going to be one system. And what made some of the best eras of gaming is when new things came up. The Xbox changed the video game world in a lot of ways. And if, you know, Microsoft had been deciding, oh, we're gonna go out and we're gonna just make some video game stuff. Oh, Sony bought us, you know, or something like that.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna make, and I understand that they're giant corporations there, that it's not quite one-to-one, but, you know, as much as, you know, I would, you know, it's never going to happen again, but, you know, I always talk about, like, you joking that Sega is going to make a console. This is the year. But I don't think we're ever going to see some of those, quote-unquote, smaller companies actually go out and try to do something big in the industry on their own, because they're always being engulfed into these giant corporations.
Yeah, and like, even indie games are, like, dying out. We're seeing more of what I would call AA games, indie companies with AAA backing. But at that point, we're going to see those game companies, they're just going to be absorbed into the conglomerate. And we're not going to see stuff like, oh God, what's the Cult of the Lamb? We're not going to see Cult of the Lambs anymore. We're going to see Microsoft's Cult of the Lamb. Because we're letting them get away with purchasing teams instead of purchasing a product.
This is actually a really, just to tie to this game here, and to tie to the
I was about to say, this is a weird, left, well, not weird, but
I have been
wild
boiling
left
on
turn.
this thought since, like, months ago.
But this is a really good thing for this game, because this is actually something that we didn't see. Like, we're talking about how fun and weird this game is, but as we move to this era where studios aren't being able to make 2 games in a year or 3 games a year because of the development time, and as you shrink that window and those things with those studios and things like that, you don't get, look, this game was panned, this game is not a great necessarily game, but you don't get these weird fun games that we love talking about. You don't get a Marvel Nemesis, you don't get something like this, you don't get these studios that are instead you're going to get these big studios just shoveling out quick things, or you're going to find studios that are milking money, or maybe some long con. We're talking about the Kong and the Walking Dead game that just came out.
Oh my God.
It's just an interesting era that we're in, and this game kind of does actually represent kind of that bygone era at the end of it.
It's sad when I say that itch.io is our only hope for, like, good small team games anymore, because I go to itch.io and I look at the top page and it's, here's a shitty FNAF ripoff, here's a slightly better FNAF ripoff, here's a PS1 horror game, a PS1 horror game, a PS1 horror game, a PS1 horror game, a PS1 horror game.
Do they have PS1 horror games?
On itch.io, they've got things that are like PSX horror games, which is to say, we've emulated the style and we've made a really shitty horror game.
Happens, but it was a good little tangent there, actually. I think that's a good message to get out on.
I feel better about my life.
Fair enough. But on this podcast, we like to ask 2 important questions of every game that we play. The first one is, how does it hold up?
Let's let Thomas answer this. He hasn't had a chance to talk in a while.
Okay. I mean, if I got nothing to add to the conversation, what the fuck was I going to add to that conversation?
Fair enough.
Yeah. Like, what the fuck am I going to add?
Fair enough. Anyways.
Yeah, I think, okay, so, whenever we talk about a game and we're like, yeah, it holds up great because all the problems it had then are the problems it has now. This is kind of the opposite where, yeah, it has more problems. I don't think it holds up great. But that's what makes it great. If that's what
that makes sense.
It doesn't hold up, but that's what makes it this fun game. Like graphically, as we talked about, it does not hold up. It
looks like Return of the King on PS2.
The glitches and the funny things, but like that's what gives this like charm to it and makes me gravitate to this game and want to play this game. And I'd love to, This is so much of a hang out on a Saturday night with your friends and just spend 3, 4, 5 hours goofing, and playing it. Like this,
Add this game to the ever-growing list of games that we're playing where it doesn't really look great, but it does not matter.
Exactly. It's multiplayer is the same thing I said a lot about Marvel Nemesis, is that like it just does it a little more better. Like,
Yeah.
lean into the fun, and that's what this game does.
Absolutely. Probably not intentionally, but it does.
Not to strangely bring the tone down again, but this is a thought that I just had that I think is really poignant. It's bad and games are bad back then, which is to say that it tries to do something, it does it mediocrely, and is fun because of it. It's not bad in the way games are now. Bad as in boring.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
and that's-
so much better to play a bad but unique game than a bland and boring.
And that's kind of exactly here I can actually add to this conversation. It's kind of why, say what you will about. All right, let's just say this for example. The Silent Hill games have had quite the, let's just say, history. But at the end of the day, when they're bad, they're at least unique.
Yeah.
Like, I was gonna say Silent Hill Downpour, especially, like, people always kind of talk shit about that game, but then you look at some of the shit it does, and it's like, it's a slightly more open Silent Hill.
tried.
It's got the side quest. They tried, and that's exactly it. They tried. Nowadays, when games are bad, it's because they don't.
Yeah.
try.
It's Kong, and it's The Walking Dead.
And it's
That's
Gollum.
the bad games we have to deal with now.
Or it's the other thing, it's just, they're bringing out their yearly game in a franchise that maybe should take more time,
I
at
have
times.
never seen worse Kong reviews.
Yeah.
than for the
No,
latest
I was
Kong.
going to say Modern Warfare 3, the new one, is just getting fucking slammed. And there's a good reason for that. They should probably take a break.
Yeah, and that's Call of Duty was the one that I was thinking of on this. Is like we talked about, especially in the Call of Duty episode when we did the first one, was we talked about like, look, we actually really do like this franchise, but there are so many Call of Duty games.
There are a lot.
It's
there
fine.
are a lot.
It's fine to just take a break, especially when it's like, I don't really want to hate on the teams that made these games.
No.
obviously.
No,
the Kong team had to make that game in 8 fucking months.
They're
trying to make
people
a modern
who,
game in 8 months. I would rather eat my own hand.
Yeah,
It's people who are victims of the system that we have allowed to take control.
and I think absolutely. It's not to say that there weren't bad games that are unplayable from that era, because there are. There are a lot of them. There are a lot of.
Crashed the industry.
There are a lot of games and a lot of issues and things like that. But there is an element of, and maybe it's the entire foundation of this podcast, is that like there is
Bad
just
games are good.
there's a difference than the bad games now, and that's not to say like a lot of bad games. I'm not necessarily counting Kong and Walking Dead, because that's kind of a very different thing
It's
on this.
their own
It's a
flavor.
But a lot of the
Their own can of
the
worms.
bad games now are still really playable. Like, you can sit down and play it, it's fine. It's just, as he said, the biggest thing for them is they're boring.
Yeah.
Okay,
Or
so-
they're not trying to break through something. They're just like, we need another Call of Duty. We need another, maybe
Another
even when
Assassin's Creed.
Ubisoft is one of the biggest criminals of this.
God, yeah.
But also things like
Oh, yeah.
the remake of Battlefront. I really like when they updated Battlefront 2, but the first Battlefront, it's fine, it's fun, but you're also like, that it?
See, okay.
Yeah.
That all?
Right there. Let's go back to the beginning of our podcast. The Phantom Menace on PS1 is a fucking atrocious game.
Oh, yeah.
It is, quite frankly...
Doors open. Let's go.
I'll kick you in the dick, I swear
I'm
to God.
having flashbacks.
I didn't
But-
experience this.
You
But-
didn't. You should have.
I respect that game more than I respect either of the newer Battlefronts. Because say what you will, Phantom Menace tried.
Yeah.
Neither of the new Battlefronts did.
And that is something where, that we can really fully just wrap up this question into EA in this game is dissolving a company. And then they go find a company to they literally owned the company that made Battlefront. They owned the company that made Battlefront. But instead of later hiring them to make it, they dissolved the company and found someone else that they could do it.
Yep.
And that is 100%.
It's short-sighted.
Mm-hmm.
It's profit-oriented.
It's short-sighted industry heads. The same reason why, on topic, Warner Brothers writes off a lot of their movies for taxes right now. it's short-sighted gains.
With all the layoffs in the industry right now. Bungie.
Oh, yeah.
God, what's the big one that I just wrote about it in the paper? I wrote about Bungie and I wrote about something else.
Bungie is definitely a big one on it recently.
Unforgivable, by the way. Like, I don't know how big the audience for this is. If any of you have a pre-order for the upcoming Destiny expansion, I need you to cancel that. This is a call to action. I'm sorry to make your podcast vaguely political. It's what I do.
Hold on, let me set up the soapbox for you.
But
You need to cancel pre-orders. When companies do these things that are regardless, like, unacceptable. Bungie fired hundreds of people from an award-winning fucking player contact team. They won the Game Awards, like, best community team last year. And they fired hundreds of employees.
And then
so
the
that they could
CEOs
make more money.
And the CEO just stands up and goes, "Oh, this is a sad day. It's a sad day. I don't know. What am I doing? Don't mind me as I wipe my tears with
Bungie.
these millions of dollars that I'm saving." But I think that is the thing here. We on this podcast absolutely love old games.
Yes.
We love video games. We love playing these old games. But in some of these things, when these things are going on, and you know what? Never got into Destiny, so like that's not going to be hard for me. But you know what you can go back and do? You could at any point go back and play Halo.
Yeah.
Break out an Xbox. Break out right now. And so, to pull this all back to this question. Hey, you got a PS3 or an Xbox 360? This game holds up in the best way possible because it doesn't.
Yes.
Go buy it. You're not supporting evilness.
Yeah. Reject modernity, accept Lord of the Rings Conquest.
The cult
That's
of
the
Conquest. The cult of Conquest.
Anyways, this has been a weirdly passionate
I'm
episode.
so sorry.
and I
That's what happens. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get on tangents, and it's fun. The second question we ask of every game that we play. Would you like to see a remake or a reimagining of this game in a modern setting?
Okay, well now it's time for...
I think I have to say no, just because of all
Just
the
your
shit
imagination.
we just talked.
Now it's time for me to get on my soapbox. In the best possible world, I'd say yes. But I can only imagine that this would end up being like the new Battlefront games. And it's like, pay $50 for Aragon's hilt or some shit. And I'm like, fuck off.
Oh,
That
you
would
wanted
be the end of everything.
you wanted Tom Bombadil? Well, you gotta buy the Extreme Edition, and you get the Tom Bombadil skin.
for Frodo Baggins.
Here's okay.
And like I said, in
In a perfect world, yes.
in a perfect world, yes, I would love to see this game reimagined. Give me a PS5 game where you can play as Gandalf.
Yeah, in a look, and we're not that far
Lord of the
removed.
Not you, Gollum guys.
That's what I was about to say. We're not that far removed from a bad Lord of the Rings game that just came out. And so, like, the thing that I just want to say about this is, like, my usual answer. I'm going to give my usual answer at the beginning. Drop it on the store right now.
Yeah.
Like
I knew that was coming.
because, like, things like
I think
Star
that's
Wars
fair.
Destruction Battles or whatever it's called is on there.
Yeah. I think
Also a
it's-
bad game, but also very entertaining in a bad way. But that would be awesome to play it. But yeah, as we just said, like, Pandemic Studios doesn't exist anymore. So yeah, whoever's remaking it wouldn't have been Pandemic anyway. But even in general, it would probably go to somebody else, and we would get probably the Battlefront games, which are fine. Battlefront 2 is actually a pretty good game, but it took it being garbage at the beginning and people getting incredibly pissed at the predatory natures
for it to
for it
get
to
better.
actually become a good game.
Yeah.
And I can't be convinced that it wouldn't be that at the beginning. So that's where it's hard for this, because we lived through the Battlefront relaunches, reboots, remakes, whatever you want to call Battlefront 1 and 2.
We live in the industry of
And
remakes.
so, like, yeah, I think I'm really on the same page with Thomas here. Like, I would love to see this on the PS5 or on an Xbox, or yeah, I don't think Nintendo's going to get it, but hey, it was on the DS, so maybe when they get the DS store, just dropping they're like, we've announced Nintendo DS on the Switch. What games you got?
Lord of the
Rings Conquest.
Wow. The day I die.
And that's all. It's just one. They launched with one game, DS Lord of the Rings Conquest.
And it's just that. It's nothing else.
They're like, we have no plans for any more games.
3
We
days
have
later,
peaked.
you find out that I actually bought Nintendo.
You won't know that I won the lottery, but there will be signs.
Okay, so for me personally, with all the best in the world, would I want to see a remake of this game? Not really, because it's not a hard game to find, for one thing, and also
$10 at GameStop.
it's not a hard
I just
game to
looked it
find.
up. $10.
But also, Lord of the Rings, not my thing. I kind of alluded to that at the
I need
beginning.
to force you to watch those movies.
You do.
Fucking
You've been trying to for a while.
Fucking heretic.
It's not even that it's not that I don't like Lord of the Rings or anything. It's just not my thing.
Mason has really bad problems. And some of those are the fact that he can't beat a 20-hour game.
Wait, what game can't you beat?
Arkham City, Arkham
At
Knight,
night,
whatever.
Arkham Knight, yeah.
If you've listened to episodes of this podcast, you know Mason has problems.
Yes.
Well, like,
Yes.
what do you mean by? Sorry to get on this tangent. What do you mean by beat? Like 100%ing it?
Like 100%ing it, yeah.
Well, also,
Like
he
doing the
hasn't
side-
beaten the game in general.
Well, that. Well,
What the fuck do you mean?
You have to do the side quests first to get the good ending.
Oh, one of those that you don't want to
Yes.
do. Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
See, you and I had very different mentalities. I saw all the Riddler trophies and I was like, fuck that. And I just went to I'll take the bad ending. Fuck
The
that.
Every
thing-
single time
guys,
I play a game with
I
that
just
kind
want to
of
say this is the greatest deja vu because I do not remember which episode, but this exact conversation happened, and Thomas said that exact same thing, and I don't know which episode.
I
and
really hope it was the Gundam episode and this entire situation
I
has
circled back
happened
around.
before.
I don't think it was, but if it was, that'd be hilarious.
It's the Watchmen thing. It's the Watchmen panel woke up and it's another day.
Yeah, 2022. Thomas says fuck it to the Arkham Riddler challenges. 2023. Thomas says fuck it to the Arkham Riddler challenges.
It's what it feels like.
Anyways, going back to me answering this, I wouldn't want to see this game remade. However, I do think it's a shame that the Battlefront style of games never really caught on to other franchises.
Yeah.
Closest it got was Battlefield.
That's what I want to see. Is
Actually,
something
no,
like
Battlefield probably made the Battlefront genre.
Yeah, and then the Battlefield, the guys who made the Battlefield went on and made the remakes of Battlefront. Because that was one of my things with the newer Battlefront games was they're fine controls, they're fun, things like that. But like there was some like the exact style wasn't what I was hoping for from the original ones, and this does copy that style.
Buy our card packs!
And that's one of the things that I'm like, this game, I love the Battlefront styles. I'm the Star Wars person, so I love that. But like this game actually fits that style, and there are so many other franchises where it'd be fun with these things. Like, can you imagine trying to make classes out of like DC heroes in a Battlefront game?
My immediate
The
first
X-Men.
thought- my immediate first thought from playing this game, and maybe it's because of all the swords I saw, I don't know, but I think Pirates of the Caribbean would fit perfectly.
Yeah, like it give that and give it kind of the vibe of Battlefield. What is it? 1914? It's not 1914.
It's like Battlefield 1 or whatever.
No, like the old one.
1942.
Yes, give it that, like an archipelago where you are
Yes.
just piloting pirate ships from outpost to outpost to capture.
Yes.
That would be
Yes.
incredible.
Yeah.
That was my first meet, but like there are tons of other. I feel like there are tons of other franchises.
There are lots that
would
you could
fit
do with it.
perfectly
Any
in this style.
franchise with like big battles can do a Battlefront game.
It would be very like not fitting for the franchise itself. It would be hilarious if Dune got a Battlefield.
Oh, I got my hero class, the Sandworm.
I got my hero
That's the
Paul
vehicle.
Atreides.
No.
Oh God.
Oh God! Look, we got Jesus here.
No, but like imagine if you will, to put you in a headspace that I've never been in because I don't know a thing about Dune. But it's like, oh, you're a foot soldier, you're running across the battlefield, one of those weird dragonfly ships fly overhead, and boom, Sandworm. That would be coolest.
That would be really cool.
Yeah,
that would be really
And
cool.
considering that that's a franchise that mostly hits in the strategy or RTS zone, yeah, that would be a really cool thing to see.
When they dropped a trailer for the new Dune game, I lost my shit because it looked like a third-person like action game
And then it
in
wa-
the Dune franchise. And I'm like, that's so fucking metal. That's what I want. It's an RTS. You bitch! You betrayed me.
You know, we saw Zelda get Hyrule Warriors.
Yeah,
Could you
the
imagine
Dynasty Warriors Zelda game?
Could you imagine if you did Zelda in this way?
Yes.
Another franchise that just came. We got the Gundam Dynasty Warriors. I just broke Jazz. Could you imagine Gundam in this style?
I'm sold.
Like,
shut up and take my money.
So anyway, if you want to donate to our Patreon, patreon.com/whatthebleep, sign
I'm
up,
crying.
watch right now, so we can raise enough money to go hire all the Pandemic Studio people to make us our Gundam game. Anyway.
We will start the Kickstarter.
But what other franchises do you guys think could be in this style? Do you like this style?
Sorry.
Let us know.
Just thought of one G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe would be great. Thomas has got another one there. Let us know. Send us an email. bleepyouplaying@gmail.com. That's bleepyouplaying@gmail.com. Let us know. Give us comments. What's your thought about the industry? We would love to hear and read it on any of these
Also,
podcasts.
tweet me with those thoughts, because I love talking about it.
Don't tweet me.
Please tweet me. Nobody ever interacts with me online.
That's a lie.
Any tweet you want to direct at me, direct at Jess.
Yes.
Exactly. But thank you for coming on, Jazz. We really appreciate it when we can get a guest star on, and we appreciate it's now the second time we've had you on here. If you guys like Jazz or don't, well, if you don't like Jazz, don't tell us. If you like her and want more of her, tell us all the time.
Yes.
Send a weekly email. Hey, is Jazz on this week's episode? Hey, Jazz on this
No,
week's episode?
1 star. Oh, fuck.
Oh, no.
Yeah, thanks for coming on so we can have a minimum of 3 people who know anything about Lord of the Rings.
That is exactly why we always to balance it, because it was just going to be one person who knew Gundam, and then boom, we equaled it, and now we're at least a little better here.
Yeah.
But we'll be back. I'm going to be bad again. It's going to be bad for me again.
Vroom, vroom.
I have brought balance to the podcast.
Burn it.